How's it going, everyone? Welcome to episode 2 of the ControllerCast. Uh, really excited to be here. We had a lot of good feedback from episode 1. Um, a lot of people enjoyed it. A lot of people said, "Hey, we're gonna go watch or listen to this thing now because of your podcast," which I love hearing. And yeah, thanks for listening, and we hope you keep tuning in. So let's get started with, I guess, just some casual talk with everyone. How was everyone's week? Maybe John.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to talk about from my week. It was pretty good. But what I do want to talk about is this weather. This is horrible this morning in Omaha, Nebraska. Super rainy, super windy. Had to take the dog out this morning. Wasn't fun, but it's a great day for a podcast. Parker?
Yeah, so this week I've just been watching college basketball, working, enjoying my time. Not since it's like kind of crappy out in Omaha, there's really not much else to do, so yeah.
Andy?
Okay, so this week I actually moved, so that took up a lot of time, and then I got my first dose of a COVID vaccine, so that's pretty exciting, I guess. Don't really feel anything. My arm just hurt like shit for about 3 hours. But
Which one?
That's it. My left arm.
No,
It's always the left arm.
Which shot?
Oh, I got the Moderna one.
Oh, yeah, you got. I got Pfizer, but I got it.
Is there going to be a vaccine war?
a brand war.
I don't
A brand
associate
war?
with these Pfizers.
Yeah, Pfizer's high drip. All right, okay.
Pfizer's like Supreme.
You go, dude. They have Supreme shirts that like say Pfizer.
That's ridiculous.
Okay, but and then my week, it's kind of like coming into like Oscar season or award season. So I like to watch like a lot of the movies that have award season buzz. I saw a handful, but one of the ones I saw is the front runner for Best Picture, and I just want to rant here because knowing that this movie is the front runner for Best Picture and it's like probably gonna win. It's a movie called Nomadland. I watched that, and that shit was like a 2-hour waste of time. Like that movie was a strong like 4.5 5 out of 10. So
Wow, really?
yeah, and it's like the front runner for Best Picture.
Yeah,
That was my opinion. I like, if you go on like Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has like a 98%. I don't know why, but just ranting.
Better than Toy Story?
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
that's just my little rant there. That I paused it halfway through the movie, and I thought I was about to reach the end, but then I saw I was halfway, and I said out loud like, "God damn it!" Like I had to sit through another hour, but yeah, that was my week. So let's go ahead and get into the topics of the week. Let's start off with Andrew. Looks like.
Yep. So this good old meme boy GME GameStop is back in business. They're up. Last time I checked, it was like 260 something.
to the moon.
Yeah, going straight
GME to the moon.
So, yeah, so
We are not affiliated with FINRA.
Yeah, I am not. I am not a licensed.
We are
legal
not financial advisors.
AKA
But
put all
after-
your money into it now.
Yeah, after tanking all the way back from its peak at I think it peaked at like 420, I think, and then I think it bottomed out like 30. Now it's back up to almost 300. So, game stonks are here to stay. Except now, the White House wants to put a tax on stock trades. So, I guess when the poor people, or quote unquote poor people, start making money off the system, I guess then that's not allowed, I guess.
Wait, the government really wants to start taxing trades?
Mhm,
Like
they wanna-
going back to basically
That's
having a
ridiculous,
commission, but instead of a commission, it goes to the government.
Yeah, so
Are you kidding
they
me?
want to. They did in 2018. The CBO did an estimate, and if they did 0.1% tax on all stocks, it would inject almost $800 million a year for a decade into the government funding. So I don't really understand
800 billion or million?
million. So it's like, I mean, that's a lot of money, but for the government, that's pretty measly. So I feel like they would I feel like it would be a disaster, but.
Wouldn't that kill?
I think that's just
That's interesting.
0.1% doesn't sound like a lot, but it would affect a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy like, if you bought like a GameStop stock right now, and there was a 0.1% tax, it would be like what, like 26 cents or something per share. I don't know.
At least.
Where do you guys think the stock could get to this time?
I think it'll stay.
I think it'll peak at about 340.
Yeah, it's not going to hit the 420, 69 where it peaked.
What a
That's insane.
calculated maneuver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, my bad. It
How does
actually
that even
peaked at
happen?
483, so.
Okay.
Whew.
Wow.
Damn.
And keep in mind, it was like at $5 or $10 when
Uh-huh.
this
Yep.
whole thing started.
Yeah. They used to give that stock out for free on Robinhood.
And I know I
Because
saw
it was that cheap.
I saw a post on WSB where some dude was like talking about how he got it as like a free stock like 7-8 months ago, and making dough since.
I'm just glad these
Does
hedge
anyone
funds
even-
got screwed out of the whole situation.
Well, does anyone even shop at GameStop anymore? Obviously, it's a meme.
I don't remember
does
the last
anyone
time I
shop
went
at this?
inside of a GameStop, honestly.
Last time
Me either.
I went was it was to I think it was to get Smash. I think that was the last time I went.
Last time I went, I was looking for a controller and they didn't even freaking have it. So
Yeah, what's
They're
the point of
useless.
GameStop if you can't even get controllers there, bro?
Oh no! I take that back. I actually have like my controllers warranted under GameStop, and I can get them replaced for like $10. So I just cycle through controllers every time they start wearing out.
That is pretty clutch.
Yeah, but like for
That's all they're used
yeah
for.
for equipment, I guess, right? For hardware, but
Right.
but games, digital's probably the future.
So I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but the game I'm going to be going over today is 6 Days in Fallujah. Is that how you pronounce that?
Fallujah.
Fallujah, okay. 6 Days in Fallujah is basically this game that was originally like developed in 2004, or they were looking to develop it in 2004. And it basically the whole premise of it. So there were Marines that were coming together and came up with this idea that they could make a realistic war game out of the Battle of Fallujah. So that's just the 6 Days of Fallujah battle that was in Iraq. And they just wanted to make a realistic game about this, but the game concept originally got canceled back then because of the controversy and how the Iraq war was literally going on while this game was coming out. So it was too political at the time, which is understandable. I understand that. But recently, so in 2021, they're looking at actually releasing this game, right? So they went back into development. The game developer is called Atomic Games, and Peter Tamte is the guy who like runs it all. So basically, he's the one who's speaking on behalf of everything that's going on behind it. So the concerns that people have with this are that it's going to get too political or it's not going to represent the battle correctly. So here's kind of what I mean. So if they decide in this game to actually represent the full battle and the atrocities that happened within it, people are going to go haywire because it's going to be really political. It's going to represent a bunch of events that people don't like. But the other way around, if they kind of hide the atrocities or not tell the whole story of what happened in the battle, they're kind of losing out on the point of the game and why the game's getting created in the first place. And they want to make it a realistic battle that people can watch, and it's like an actual war simulator. That's the whole point of this game, is to be a simulator for a real battle. But I'm not sure quite how they can do that without talking about the atrocities that happened. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this, what they should do. I kind of think they're in a position where they're kind of in a hole because either way they go, people are going to bring up controversy.
Yeah, so I can go ahead and start off with my thoughts on this. So, yeah, this game was supposed to be made back in like the mid to late 2000s, and I remember it being like a hot topic issue back then too. Um, yeah, I think maybe I could see the sensibility of the argument that when it was originally coming out, it might have been too close to home to really accept at that time. I'm personally am not up. I wouldn't be of that school of thought. Like I don't think there's like for something like that like ongoing that we had Hurt Locker and stuff like that back then. I don't see why a game can't do it, but I think now them kind of saying, hey, after they kind of got set on fire back in the mid to late 2000s with this game, that hey, now they're saying we don't want to make it. The game isn't going to be political. I think that's just a severe miscalculation on their part.
Yeah, in my honest opinion, what I want this game developer to do is just come out with the game and tell the full story, because that would be what the whole point of it is like they want a realistic war simulator. Why don't they just come out with
right?
it?
How are they going to set it up?
I just think it's our like population and our people that are just kind of overreact. Action machines, I should say, and they'll make controversy out of anything.
Yeah, and I think that I think when you tell if they are honest with what happened in Fallujah, that who cares if it's political or not? Just like be honest with the storytelling. Don't just make like American propaganda. Like be honest with like what happened in that circumstance. And
you don't want a manufactured war game if the whole goal is to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if they put it out, it needs to have everything that happened. And personally, I hope they put everything that happened, because I read up on it and it's pretty messed up. And I think I mean, I don't know if I want to say like owe it I don't know. I think they should put the full breadth of it, because I don't think I'd never heard of it until we talked about it. I never even heard of this.
Well, if they're gonna tell a story. Well, if they're going to tell a story so realistic, going off of what you said, Andrew, I think it's important for the American public and the people, not just the American public, but the public and the people in general that are going to be playing the game, they should know accurately what happened.
Yeah, and I think there's also like a part of it where it's like, was it like the actual backlash from the people, that caused it to get canceled in the first place, or was it like the government, I guess, or somebody else having their hand in it and being like, hey, you guys cannot publish this right now, or something like that.
I think it was a public backlash, and it was just too soon.
Yeah, it was public.
Yeah,
I think it was just too soon.
But I think
at the time.
But yeah, I think if you don't make it honest and true, to like what happened, and you just make it like a bro shooter, what's the point? We have Call of Duty for that. We have Battlefield for that. We have all this other stuff. Make yourself unique. And I think the best stories or the most interesting stories are the ones that there's shades of gray to it. It's not like, oh, good guys versus bad guys.
What an example of that I wanted to talk about, according to the Wikipedia page, Peter Tamte, the guy who's behind this all, admitted that the game won't include the American atrocities, including the use of white phosphorus. I think that if this game included those atrocities, it would add to the value of it. It would add to the quality of the game. It would make it more intense for the user that's playing it.
Well, I think that goes back to just a deeper thing. I can't. I'm not trying to speak for the military or anything, but I feel like that's something that would, if it was a good enough game and presented in the right way, I think it would create a lot of public backlash against the government and what the Army does. Even though a lot of times maybe they deserve criticism for the horrible things that they've done in the past and continue to do. But I don't know. I don't want to get too political on it, I guess. It's just, I feel like if you're gonna make a game like this and use real stories from like Marines and people that were there, you can't. I feel like it's unfair to everybody, like the audience, to leave out, important parts of what happened. Because I mean, I'd never heard of this until this game came, so I'm sure there's a lot of people like me, obviously, that haven't even heard of
me.
it.
Yeah, society can't make improvements unless people talk about it, right? Like, so
Yeah, because the stuff
Exactly.
that happened is not something you would put in a movie and put out on a movie. It's something that I feel like you can only put through like video games, because I don't know. It just reading what happened. I don't see how you can make a movie about it and not make it look like the United States is the supervillain.
yeah.
Without getting too political.
Oh my god. Okay. John, maybe. I think we all kind of got our thoughts off on this one. Just going into the rabbit hole.
Point to pivot.
But John, do you want to go ahead and go into your topic?
Yeah. So this week I was reading up a little bit on some Naughty Dog rumors. So Naughty Dog is, we all know who Naughty Dog is, but maybe some of the listeners don't. They developed games such as Uncharted, Crash Bandicoot in the beginning, and The Last of Us.
Some of the best games of all time.
Yes.
Really, honestly.
S-tier.
And 10 out of 10s across the board. And speaking of, there have been rumors circulating about a new IP. But to be fair, I'm not even going to comment too much on this, because there have been rumors of a new IP from Naughty Dog since like 2017. And it's kind of just dust in the wind at this point. There's always rumors of new IPs with developers. And I think that Naughty Dog will eventually get a new IP, but I think they've got a lot to focus on with, The Last of Us show. I know Neil Druckmann has his hands in that. And another rumor, they've been apparently working on a Last of Us 2 story DLC. Now, I'm not going to spoil too much, because I know that Parker's working through this game right now, and we're actually going to be talking about this game on the podcast. But what do you guys want to see from a Last of Us 2 DLC? Arsel, do you want to give your thoughts?
So I think it needs to be a situation like Last of Us Part 1 or Last of Us 1 that like Left Behind, like it's a character focused and it like adds to the story. But I don't know. I know what character it's rumored to focus on, and I'd be interested in seeing that. But I'd also be interested in seeing like maybe a Joel DLC, like where maybe a lot of people have said that they want to see what his life was like in the 20 years between like the first part of Last of Us 1 and then like when it skips ahead, it says like 20 years later and they're into the whole pandemic and everything, like what happened in between that. I'd be interested in seeing that.
Yeah.
Parker?
Yeah, I was thinking like a Left Behind kind of DLC, because Left Behind was honestly like one of my favorite parts of the first game. I thought it really went into character development and explained more about how they behave, how they act. I feel like that would be something really interesting for the second game if they did something with Ellie again, or if they, like Arsel said, like go with the Joel style, just doing more of a deep dive on a character and what they think on certain things,
Yeah, I imagine that's what they'd have to do. I mean, The Last of Us has always been, character driven and story driven, but Andrew, what do you think, or what would you like to see from a Last of Us 2 DLC?
I'd probably like to see like the gap between the first and the second game, just because I didn't play Left Behind, the DLC for the first one. When does that take place? Is that after the events of the first?
It's before.
Oh, okay, before.
Yeah.
So if there is something between like 1 and 2, it's kind of like got me in this spot where it's kind of like Star Wars, I feel like, where like, like between episode 3 and 4, there's like a huge gap, and then they're like slowly like filling in the pieces between it. I feel like that's really interesting because I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to get like a really good and interesting like plot line from a DLC put into like in between the first and second game, because obviously a lot of time passes between the first and the second, so I think it'd be interesting to see kind of like how the settlement in Wyoming got set up and all that stuff. I think that'd be really cool.
Exactly. I mean, they've got the town, they've got systems to how they handled the infected.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think that'd be really interesting. I think the time before even during or before the events of the first game, where Joel has to survive for a long time after his daughter passes. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the other rumors. Factions 2, thank goodness, is in the rumor mill. I've been excited for Factions 2 for a long time. I know Ursula and I played Factions 1 quite a bit. Actually, recently, before the second game came out, we kind of got on a Factions kick. And it's actually a really interesting idea for a multiplayer. Like, you can be revived, and it's a shoot 'em up multiplayer, but you get supplies and you craft things to help you out. And it's stealth based for the most part. So it's pretty much unlike any other shooting multiplayer experience that's out. And with those graphics too. And the fluidity of The Last of Us, it's so fluid. It's insane how fluid it is. What do you guys hope to see from Factions?
You know what Factions felt like to me? It just felt like the closest you can get to single player while you're playing online. That's kind of the vibe I got of it. Like, it's just so intense and slow. People have no ammo, no supplies, so you got to be very strategic, just like you are in the campaign.
Yeah, and I love Factions 1, or the first Factions in Last of Us Part 1, and I played a shit ton of it. I know me and John have played it a bunch of times, and yeah, I just love how it's very like stealth focused. It takes a lot of the aspects from the single player into the multiplayer, and like in my opinion, The Last of Us Part 2's gameplay, like the combat and the stealth is like the best in class with like third person like gameplay, and seeing that gameplay, like imagining it in like a current day multiplayer situation where I'm pretty sure they're going to do like the original Factions, but also add like a battle royale, because that's what everyone's doing. Like just seeing that with The Last of Us's gameplay and setting, like I think that'd be super cool.
Andrew, what do you want to see from Factions?
I've played like 1 hour in my entire life of Factions 1, so I have no opinion on this.
Really? Well, I want to see the same kind of things. I want to see a lot of what we saw with Factions 1, but I would like to see something new added. They've taken their sweet time on it. So I hope they have something up their sleeve with it. But moving on to the next rumor, actually, I think Parker's going to like this one. You do have a PS4 in your possession right now. I know you're borrowing it, but
getting a PS5 very soon.
Too.
Hopefully.
Yep. But
yeah, they have them in stock
get in stock. But Uncharted, there's a rumor that Uncharted will be coming to PC pretty soon. Not The Last of Us, but Uncharted is, in my eyes, just as good as The Last of Us. They're totally different games, but they're both kind of story-driven, third-person shooters. One's a lot more fast-paced. Uncharted is a lot more fast-paced, where Last of Us is a lot slower-paced. But Parker, would you pick up Uncharted on PC if they threw a collection on Steam for $40 to $60?
Dude, I would totally get the Uncharted collection. Are you kidding me? I've always wanted to play that game. It's just the gameplay just
Uncharted
looks
2,
so fun every time I've watched you guys play or like I've seen it online. It just looks like you guys said, a faster paced Last of Us in a way, but it kind of is less storytelling.
Very
But
action
I would
and
definitely
like
enjoy that and pick it up because it definitely has beautiful graphics from what I've seen.
yeah, Uncharted is like I connect that with PlayStation so much because that was Uncharted 1 was the first game I played on PS3, and then I played through 2. 2 is like one of my favorite games of all time. 3 was really good too. 4 is like one of the best games on PS4. Like, so all these games are top tier, honestly. And I remember like I got the collection on PS4 so I could just play through them all again on like at like 60 FPS, and it was a super fun time.
Yeah, I grew up on an Xbox,
Yeah,
so
so
unfortunately I wasn't able to play these Naughty Dog thrillers when they came out.
Yeah, I know Andrew really likes Uncharted. If you ever built a PC, Andrew, I know you never would. But would you replay? Say they released Uncharted as like a PS5 upgrade with like ray tracing or whatever, extremely fast load times. Would you pick that up?
I might do it for 4, but like 1 through 3 are really good. It's just like it's like after playing Uncharted 4 and Last of Us 2, like it's just like the mechanics and everything just feel so ancient. Like if they
Yeah.
did like a full on like remaster, like remake almost that use like the engine they use on Uncharted 4 and Last of Us 2, I might. But if it was just a visual thing, like and same with the Last of Us remastered on PS4, it just feels so ancient compared to like playing Last of Us 2 and Uncharted 4 that unless they did something like that and totally rebuilt it, I think I'd probably pass.
That's the thing with like games in
Yeah.
general. Like when you play the newer ones, it feels so weird going back to the older ones for any
Hmm.
series.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
Exactly.
but yeah, I mean,
I do think that's kind of interesting the direction Sony's going with potentially putting more of their exclusives on PC.
yeah, that is like, and they said there's going to be more coming, and I can totally see Uncharted coming, and I think it's a smart idea because a lot of the timing around it so far has been when the sequel has been announced. So I think their strategy here is let's put the original game on PC a few years afterwards, but we're releasing it once the sequel has been announced, and they're kind of drawing up hype, maybe, or getting more people interested in the franchise. So maybe it'll convert PC players to want to get a PS5.
Right. Right. It's smart business
Dude,
move.
I'm just imagining playing Uncharted 4 at 155 FPS, bro. I'm just imagining it.
Whew.
You'd probably need like a monster PC, honestly, like
Yeah, you'd need a monster PC to run Uncharted 4, like at max settings.
like 4K, like
Dude, that game looks amazing.
I would probably go down in 1080p just for the frame rate, bro. Like, I am that kind of dude.
I mean, if
that kind of gamer.
If Last of Us 2 didn't exist, Uncharted 4 would still be the like probably the best looking game out there. Like it looks really good. The Last of Us 2 exists, so but let's all right, go ahead, John, sorry.
Yeah, that's all I had for the Naughty Dog rumor mill, but I did want to mention real quick an interesting statistic I saw too. So I saw an article where the PS5 overtakes the Switch as the fastest selling console in the US in dollar sales. So, I mean, it is a more expensive console, but I think this is really impressive considering how many people do have a Switch. I think it's the Nintendo Switch is like a household item as the Wii was in its time. I think the timing of the release, with stimulus checks and people at home more was perfect for Sony. It was just a perfect storm for people to buy new consoles. I think it's important to note that the Switch is only $300 and it is a dollar sales figure. So the units sold might be more, with the Switch. I didn't look that far into it. I didn't know if you guys had anything to say on that. I thought it was an interesting stat to mention.
I think
that just speaks well to how well the PS5 is selling. Like, it's constantly out of stock.
Right, like you were saying, you couldn't get one.
I'm trying like my hardest to find one, and I got notifications on for Wario 64. Like, I am following this because I've got the money now to get one, and of course, as soon as I get the money to get one, I can't find anything. So that's just shows how much that people have, or like that just shows the demand that is going into the PS5. Like, people really want one right now. It's a hot commodity.
Arsenal, it sounded like you had something you wanted to say.
I just think we're all stuck in our houses, and it's like this past year we saw like a really big rise in video game culture really moving up in, I guess, mainstream presence, where I felt like everyone was playing games with Among Us, Fall Guys, Animal Crossing. Like, these were big topic things in general pop culture, and more just video games are more popular than they ever have been. So it makes sense that the Switch is breaking numbers every month, and now the PS5 is breaking numbers. Like, both of these consoles are selling like gangbusters, and it makes total sense because of the situation we're in, like, in the world. I'd love to see Microsoft's figures, but
yeah, they won't release them.
I don't think they would want to.
Andrew, did you have anything to? I don't think they'd want to either. I mean, I think Microsoft's kind of fallen behind, but that's another topic.
Their exclusives are really bad.
Well, we can.
Andrew, did you have anything else to say about that?
No, I think you guys covered everything I was going to say. So,
yeah.
Speaking of Microsoft.
Yeah, speaking of Microsoft. Yeah, perfect transition here. Let's talk about what happened this week. So, this has been kind of an ongoing story for a few months now. I think the news first broke out about this near the end of 2020. But what happened this week is kind of the final update to the situation, I guess, is the Bethesda Microsoft or Bethesda Xbox acquisition like officially went through this week. It's confirmed. They like released a whole video about it. They did a little press conference about it, or like a little press video about it. And pretty much, just if anyone wasn't aware, but this was like absolutely like new, like huge news when it happened. But it is $7.5 billion acquisition that Microsoft made of Bethesda, and that means they get access to franchises like The Elder Scrolls, so like Skyrim, Fallout, Prey, Doom, Dishonored. That's just to name a few, and those are all huge franchises. Indiana Jones. So those are all going to be Xbox published games now. And the big question up until this point was really, what is Microsoft's plan with this? Are they going to start making all these franchises exclusive on Xbox, or are PlayStation players still going to be able to get it? And this was only even a debate because Microsoft's messaging behind this whole situation has been so vague and messy, where they're just dropping these really vague statements the past few months about what their plan is with this whole deal. But now this week, it seems like they've finally said that they did this deal so they could get exclusives. So maybe that's a confirmation that they are going to be exclusives. But then they also said we might look at franchises that have quote unquote legacies on other consoles to see what we can do with that in the future. So it's still like more vague messaging from Microsoft, which kind of annoys me. But what did you guys think about this now that it seems like Microsoft is going to have like all these huge franchises under their belts and all these studios under their belt? Like, what if, the next Elder Scrolls or the next Fallout is an exclusive to Xbox? What do you guys think?
I personally don't like it because I just feel like Microsoft will find a way to make one of these very hugely popular games an exclusive to Xbox. I just don't like exclusives in the first place, to be honest with you, because it forces you to have to buy a new console just for that game. I personally would have preferred Bethesda to just be its own company so they could continue what they're doing. But I mean, hopefully it creates better quality games for Bethesda at least, where it gives them more resources to work with and helps make the games less glitchy. Because I don't know if you guys have ever played Oblivion or Skyrim or anything like that, but those games you can glitch the hell out of and completely annihilate them. So I hope that they get
the original PS3 version of that game?
Yeah,
that did not even work.
It's just so a lot of their games are kind of broken, to be honest. But I at least hope from this acquisition that they can improve their games and make them less glitchy.
Yeah, John, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think it's a smart business move by Microsoft, because they can't break out any exclusives on their own. We haven't seen really a good breakout exclusive from Microsoft or one of their studios, minus Forza, in a long time. So I think it's a smart business move, and I actually think it's like nice of them to consider the quote-unquote legacy on other consoles, because if they do consider that, every other game's been on PlayStation. So where will the exclusives be? Will it be like the new Bethesda IPs, if they have any in the works? But I think that exclusives are a good idea. I actually think that Microsoft, good for them. I'm not bashing them on their decision, but what do you think, Andrew?
I think if there's still a console war going on, I feel like this is like a concession speech from Microsoft, because they're basically like, hey, we can't grow our own homegrown studios that can make banger games, so we're just going to buy a huge one. With the fat stack of money we have.
Raising the white flag.
Pretty much. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Bethesda's kind of fallen off lately. I feel like Fallout 76 was a disaster. Fallout 4 wasn't even that great, and I guess I haven't played Skyrim or anything ever, but I feel like Elder Scrolls 6 will probably, is that what the next one is?
Yeah.
That'll probably come out on PlayStation as well, but I do think one funny thing is that since they bought Bethesda, now Xbox will be publishing a PS5 exclusive game with Deathloop.
Yeah. This is interesting because I think in the general consent idea of things, when people talk about exclusives, it's not necessarily really in a bad light. No one's like, no one's saying like, oh, what the hell, like the Nintendo, why isn't Mario on Xbox? People
that would be nice.
Yeah, but it's
cool,
kind of like an accepted kind of staple in the industry. But I feel like this is one of the first times I've seen where it's like the idea behind something being exclusive, or like an exclusive, is kind of is being put in a negative light, because I think it is what, like you said, Andrew, and what you said, John, is like, you have Nintendo and you have Sony, or Nintendo and PlayStation, and they have their exclusive lineup is, homegrown, built up. They really catered and nurtured and really developed those studios to what they are now. The Naughty Dog that exists now, they weren't that Naughty Dog 20 years ago. They've grown up to that
exactly
point. Same with Sucker Punch or whatever, and even Nintendo's internal studios. And Xbox is kind of just taking the fast route to that, like the shortcut of the easy
route.
It feels, like you said, a concession speech. Like we couldn't do this. We couldn't put together our all-star lineup of exclusives, and now we're just going to buy this entire publisher that has these 10 games, these 10 different franchises, and we're going to let them do the talking for us. So
right.
I think this is big news, and I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm expecting it to be. I'm expecting them to that there's a good chance that Elder Scrolls and all these other games could be exclusive, and we might not see, the next Elder Scrolls or whatever, the next Doom, the next whatever, Wolfenstein on PlayStation. So, but it'll be on PC. But we'll have to see how that plays out in the public discourse, because I think right now it's kind of like an accepted fact, but actually seeing it happen is going to be kind of crazy, I feel like. So that's all for the current events. And now let's go ahead and get into the main topic. All right. So the main topic of this episode is actually going to be a already seminal game in video game history or culture. That game is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And we're talking about it today specifically because we just passed about a week or so ago the 4-year anniversary of this game. And we thought it'd be a good time to, hey, let's talk about it. There's been some conversation about the sequel, which we'll talk about later on. But let's go ahead and talk about Breath of the Wild. This was a game that was actually the launch title of the Switch, and it was the final title of the Wii U. So it was kind of just this transition period between the two consoles. It was announced early in the 2010s, and the director of the series, Anuma, I think that's how you pronounce it. He said early on he wanted to make an open world game. So there's a lot of hype coming into this game. A lot of people were curious how the first genuine open world Nintendo game, not just Zelda game, like an open world Nintendo game, how they were going to fare in their first outing or their first attempt. Eventually, we got to see aspects of the game, and it finally released. And right before release, we got to see the scores, the perception of the game, and it was overwhelmingly positive in terms of critical reception when it came out. It has one of the highest Metacritics of all time, and it's tied with Red Dead Redemption 2 with having the highest Metacritic of this generation. So those two games have the highest Metacritic of this gen, with Odyssey as well, actually. So Odyssey, Red Dead 2, and Breath of the Wild all have like 97s. And this game has just been received universal praise. And we're just really going to dive into it from here. So my first thing I want to start off with was our personal experiences with the game. So I'll start off and keep it rolling from there. This game wasn't on my radar to begin with, because I wasn't really into the Zelda franchise. I played Wind Waker. That was kind of the main one I played beforehand. But this one, but then the reviews came out, and I saw all the glowing reviews, and it was on my radar then. And I saw all the Switch had a banger first year. So I went ahead and picked up a Switch at the end of its launch year. I got Breath of the Wild, and I played most of it on handheld mode because I didn't have a TV back in my room that year. And I really, really enjoyed this game, and I wasn't enamored, or I didn't love it when I first finished it. And we'll go into that. But I really appreciated this game when it came out, and I will say my appreciation has grown since. And I do think this game is a masterpiece now, even though I didn't think that to begin with. But that's my general opinions and how I got into this game, or my feelings with this game. How about Parker? Do you want to share?
Yeah, so I played this game probably like 6 months to a year after the release. So I played a little bit after you guys, I think. But I really enjoyed the open world aspect of the game and how you can interact with your environment. It just gives you a very good feel for how you can do different things within the game. Like you can use bombs to launch you up in the air to take you, teleport you to a different spot, or you could freeze water to help you climb up in something across a river. Just simple stuff like that, where it just makes you feel so accomplished while you're doing it, but it's not really anything all that special. The game just makes everything feel rewarding, and I just love everything about it.
Yeah, this game is actually my favorite game of all time. I mean, my experience with it was it was a slow start at first. Kind of like Ursel, I didn't it wasn't on my radar at first, but luckily my girlfriend at the time, soon to be wife, Casey, she had bought me a Nintendo Switch for my birthday, and the game that she picked up with it was Breath of the Wild. And I had wanted the game because I had seen it. I had seen trailers for it, and I thought it looked super cool. As you boys know, I never really finished a long open world game before. I tend to kind of sputter out and get bored of open world games after a while. I just like messing around in them. Like GTA, I never beat GTA 5,
shame.
but
What a shame.
I beat it twice. Twice.
Yeah, like 3 times I think for me. Yeah,
you guys still
maybe one day.
for that. No, but this game got me back into gaming. I mean, throughout high school and then the beginning of college, I kind of strayed away from playing games just a little bit. Life was starting to get busier. But this game got me back into playing games. I mean, it was the most fun that I've had with a video game in my entire life. I love this game. It is a masterpiece for me. We'll dive more into the reasons why we all think what we think and our scores for the game. But Andrew, how was your experience with the game?
So a little bit of background. I never played a Zelda game before this one. So this was my first one, which is probably a very hearty introduction to it. But I think this game, it was, I got it for Christmas, 2017 is when, 2017. I had a lot of fun playing it. It's, the only thing is, I feel like it's like a game I wish I could like go back and have no memory of and then play it again, because I guess after like, putting so many hours, I think I have like 100 something hours on it. I just
Same.
find it hard to like want to play it again, and like, cause I got the, it's just one that like you play it through the first time and then a little bit more, and I just didn't really, it's not one that I would go back to. It's like Mario Odyssey, I finished that. I didn't go back to that. But it did get me interested in Zelda, and I'll probably talk about that later. But
I think it's a game that you want to take your time with on the first run. And speaking on your point, Andrew, that's what I did. And that's the reason I did, because I was afraid that I wouldn't want to go back to it, because it is such a long game. If you truly dive into it, I mean, I easily spent 90 hours on my first go through, and I didn't even get all the shrines, which are the puzzles that help you level up.
I mean, it took me like 95 hours to get to where I am, and I haven't finished all the shrines, or I haven't even gotten half the seeds that are scattered around.
Like that's the crazy part for like, I think like one thing I've noticed with how I play games is like I'm a very like objective driven player, like where I'm like, okay, I just finished this activity. Now like what's the next activity? Let me just go straight to it. Like I'm just trying to like knock things off a checklist. And that's a crazy thing you guys are saying, you played for like 90 hours, 100 hours. And it's crazy because like I did all of the shrines, every all 132 of them, and I even did the DLC, and like I'd also played a good amount of the like master sword like challenges, and like I did everything in like 80 hours, which is crazy to me.
That I think is crazy. And when you told me that the first time, I was like, how? Because I spent a lot of time just exploring. I mean, I spent a lot of time learning. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't look up any tutorials on how to do anything or how to get around faster or get through, the lava world where you can't even go there without special armor or a potion. But I still think that 80-hour number for what you did is insane.
I like to just mess around and run around, like, especially in that game. Like, I just liked interacting with the environment. So I spent like 100 hours just doing my first playthrough. I didn't even get like, I got like probably 3/4 of the the shrines. I collected quite a bit of Korok seeds though, but it's still like it took me a lot longer than 80 hours to get through the game.
John, I know you wanted to like delve into the design
insane.
of the game, like the interactions with the environments. And go on.
Yeah, I know Parker's talked about this a little bit already. But I think that it's insane on like how intuitive the game truly is. I think it's one of the most intuitive games that I've ever played, and I think that it's honestly one of the most intuitive games that's been released. Like it's insane that you can craft food and potions that you need to survive in certain areas. I kind of talked on this a little bit earlier. You kind of figure this out on your own with subtle hints. But this makes the game so much more rewarding. And I feel like it just makes the game feel like your own personal journey. Like no one's going to have the same experience when they play this game. Like with The Last of Us, everyone's going to have the same experience for the most part because it's a pretty linear game, but absolutely no one will take the same path when playing Breath of the Wild. Like speaking more on how intuitive it is, like climbing up mountainsides, and figuring out ways to get to the next shrine were some of the most fun times that I had playing the game. Like not even the shrines themselves, but trying to figure out a way to climb up this mountainside to get to it. It was just, it speaks on, how creative they got with this game in general. There was a side quest actually where you could collect enough materials to build a house and eventually an entire town. Like this side quest is something that I loved. And it felt like a better ending to the game than the actual ending. Like I just wish there was more of this. And I know that Parker was kind of talking about the design and how you interact with environments earlier. Parker, do you want to speak a little more on that?
So the game gives you like a few abilities. So you can use a bomb, you can use a magnet, you can create ice out of water, and there's
right. I didn't even talk about that.
There's a camera as well that you can use to kind of identify things and take pictures of memories. They give you all those abilities just from one little menu there. And that was my favorite little interactive thing you could do in the game because you could manipulate the environment in so many ways to get you from from point A to point B. Like just what do you need to do that? And it makes you feel like especially when you're in a shrine, like it makes you just feel like a beast when you can figure out like how you manipulate the environment to complete the objective. It just makes you feel like a beast.
Right. I remember one specifically where you have to like use the ability to freeze an item and you hit it in the direction you want it to go. You hop on the item and then after you hit it in the direction you want it to go, it flies and you fly with it.
Yeah.
Like who thinks of this stuff?
Yeah.
It's just so much fun.
I just think that's
one of my other favorite parts of the game was like how you were able to be a chef. Like you just had to find a little place. You had to make a fire, and then you just put your raw materials in there, and you can make dishes like a chef, dude. It's just so many different aspects of this game are just so fun. Just the little things that Nintendo did to make this game top tier.
My like in terms of the interactions and all that stuff, that's kind of like going off what Parker said is. This game makes you feel like a beast. This game makes you feel like this game makes you feel smart. This game makes you feel clever.
Yeah.
Because it surprisingly, unlike most games, this game actually, just takes off. It really opens up the playground for you. There's not there's not really always in most cases there's multiple ways that you can approach a single thing. There's not just one way that you can solve something. You can figure out multiple ways if you're creative enough to solve multiple situations and encounters. And yeah, the gameplay is so intuitive that it makes its own storytelling out of it. That you want to get up to a mountain, to a shrine. In most games, that would just be, there's probably a set path up the mountain that you could go up, and you would go up that path to get up to the mountain, and there it is. You experience the game story because you followed that path up the mountain. But in this game, you see the shrine at the top of the mountain, and it's up to you to figure out, how am I going to get up there? What path specifically? Like every single step, even on the mountain, every little direction you choose to go on the mountain is a decision, because you have stamina. You have your stamina that dictates, your physical capacity. Okay, am I really going to take the chance and swim across this river because I could drown, or am I going to go around the river, and try to take land? Am I going to climb this certain path on the mountain formation, or am I going to go the opposite direction and try to just find a route I can run up? There's so many small decisions that are constantly happening because the tool set is so open to interpretation that makes it there's
Exactly.
There really, up until this game, there wasn't anything like it. And I know Andrew, maybe you wanted to talk about that as well.
Yeah, I think the game it's insane how, you talk about open world, but there's not many games where it's open world like this game. You have speedrunners and stuff you can go straight to Ganon's castle whenever you want to. You could wake up in the at the start of the game and just do all the introduction stuff and run straight into the castle and just go head on, right into the final boss battle. It's I can't even think of an open world game where there's not a system where there's a set missions in a set order that you have to complete to unlock to be able to go there. You could be Link just in shorts and no other clothes with a wooden sword and just walk right in, it's crazy. You think of a game we were talking 95 hours played. People can beat this game in 27 minutes, I think, is the world record or something. It's insane. And just
That's insane.
And also to that point, the way the game's designed, just how creative you can get it, the fact that the game allows you to even be able to, do a huge boss, 20 minutes into the game when you have no weapons or armor or anything, it's insane. And it's kind of shows you how open world sandbox this game really is. It's very it's open world to the point where it's almost too open, where you can skip the entire story just to beat the final boss. It's crazy, man. It's really a pinnacle of video game design and achievement, really. It's crazy.
I agree. Yeah, and to speak more, not just on how intuitive it is, but this game is gorgeous to look at. The art style truly is something timeless to me. They put what is one of the most expansive and interactive games on the Switch, a tablet, and made it look beautiful. The art style is something that I think is timeless, more so than I've seen in any other Zelda game since Wind Waker. With Skyward Sword coming out with a remaster, there's Ocarina that was remastered. These other games, I think they feel old, and I don't think they aged like Breath of the Wild will. The art style just, it reminds me of a fine wine or a fine liqueur. That it gets better over time. And just talking about it right now makes me right when we get done recording, I'm gonna boot this game up and play for a few hours. I don't know what.
Yeah,
what do
the
you
art
guys
style
think?
reminds me of Wind Waker evolved, like to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
I just love that cartoony style. I feel like that fits Zelda more than like the Skyward Sword style or the even like the Ocarina of Time style. Like I feel like that's what they should stick with because it fits the characters perfectly.
Yeah, and like I just want to like with my experience, yeah, this game still to this day looks beautiful. It could have like they like Breath of the Wild 2, if it came out today and had the exact same graphics, I would have no issues. Besides maybe the fact that it looks exactly the same as the original. But like well, I guess my point was if Breath of the Wild came out today, you know, it would still look great. You know, and I booted this game up. I was at John's place actually, and we like booted the game up just to see it running on a TV, and we were both talking about it even then. Like this game still looks gorgeous, and the art style they have is something that is going to stand the test of time because it's not just based on fidelity. You know, like if you look back at something like let's say Uncharted 1 when it came out looked like everyone said this is the best looking game ever. This looks like real life. Now that is that game is considered a game that doesn't look great. So it's funny how that sort of thing develops like that.
Right.
But you could look at Wind Waker, and Wind Waker still looks beautiful. And I think that would be like the same case with this game. That this game will look 10 years down the line. Hey, yeah, this game still looks very, very good.
I think like you were saying, the art style, I feel like the art style is very, symbolic of the Zelda franchise, how it's like, it's like a serious adventure game, but it also has like lots of like fun and, I don't know, kind of experimental stuff, I guess. It's got like the Nintendo charm. Like, I feel like if they made this game and had like Last of Us 2 visuals, I mean, it would still be a fun game, but I feel like it would lose some of that Nintendo charm. And I think that goes back to just Nintendo as a whole. They're not all about like, oh, look, like obviously like no like ray tracing, like, oh, the puddles have your exact, all this stuff. They make the graphics look very sharp and detailed for their specific art style, which is a more like anime cartoon type style.
Yeah. And yeah, like this, I think like kind of wrapping that up, like it's gonna have like, this game, even though it is on weaker hardware to the like PS4 and Xbox One, it looks better than some of those games on those consoles. Mm-hmm. So, and yeah, exactly. But like going into like kind of transitioning into like some more specific moments for all of us, like, what were our favorite moments? Who were, just our favorites. Like, let's just talk about our favorites. Favorite moments, maybe favorite boss fight, favorite champion, favorite character. I'll start off. My favorite moments, like things that really come to mind are, I think the final, or like that one island, going to that one island off of the shore where it takes away all your stuff. And it's a shrine on that island, and you have to like pretty much use it with like your starting gear. You have like no clothes. Mm-hmm. That one was that one was one of my favorites. Whenever I had to and I don't know if this is a specific moment, but in general was every time I saw something in the distance and I marked it, and and then the mission was now okay, like now I got to get there, and it was it was exciting going through the world because it was a puzzle in and of itself. Always like, how am I going to get to this next shrine, or this this next part of the story, or the side mission, or whatever it might be. Those were some of my favorite moments. And then I would just say like my favorite champion, or like the favorite location area. I would probably say the desert. I thought that was really cool area, really expansive. Like I'm a sucker for that setting, like that kind of setting, like desert Egyptian style almost. Like I think that's a really cool setting to explore in video games, or in just stuff in general. And I thought it was interesting, like, oh, you have to like stay out of the heat, or else you'll start getting damaged. And you have to like dress up as a woman to like dress up as like female clothing to get into the town.
Right.
And then like the boss fight is really awesome. Probably my favorite as well, because you're like riding on those like I forgot what it was, like some sort of animal, and like while you're riding it, you're shooting arrows at the feet, and I thought that was just a really cool fight. So those are my kind of favorite moments and favorite areas and fights. So maybe I'll go ahead and pass it off to Parker if you wanted to share.
Yeah, so some of my favorite moments in the game were honestly the shrines themselves. So honestly, my favorite moment of the game was the major test of strength. I actually did this on my first try. I didn't die once, and it just made me feel so good about it once I was done. I just love the interactiveness of all the shrines, to be honest with you, because each of them presents a new challenge, and it helps you level up at the same time. And you kind of just figure out more about the game while you're doing those shrines. Like, oh, hey, I can manipulate this object to do this for me, and that allowed me to get to the next part of the stage. So some of my favorite moments weren't even like anything to do with the plot of the game. They're just more so to do with the interaction of the environment and just kind of just exploring. But I'll pass it off to Andrew. What are some of your favorite moments?
I think my favorite moment, more collection of moments, was when you go to Goron City. I think playing through, because by the time I got there, I had known a little bit about like Ocarina of Time, so I knew like what Goron City looked like in there. So I think it was that whole atmosphere was just really cool. Like all the Gorons working and stuff all around, volcanic ash and all the lava pits and stuff. I thought it was really cool, and having to wear special armor so you don't get overheated, kind of like the desert area. I think it's really cool. I think by far though my favorite moments now that I've played through Ocarina of Time is just seeing all these different locations in Breath of the Wild, like all these ones from Ocarina of Time rather, seeing them like redone and remastered in Breath of the Wild. I think it's really interesting, and I think it adds more to it now, looking at the environments now that I know Parker, you've played Ocarina of Time. I don't know John and Ars, or I don't know if you guys have played those at all. But
a little bit when I was young, but
yeah. But I know Parker, you could probably relate. Like if you go to like the locations like Goron City, Zora's Domain, the Lost Woods and stuff. I think by far the coolest thing is just seeing like all these old locations from previous games, just kind of like there, and just seeing how they are, because obviously this game is set 100 years in the future, so it's kind of partly like, oh, they look different because they're remastered on a new game, but they also look different because a lot of time has passed and stuff like that. And I think that adds to the charm for sure for the game.
I feel like Goron City, they made it a lot different in Ocarina, or not, in Breath of the Wild rather than Ocarina of Time. Mm-hmm. Like in Ocarina of Time, Goron City was like fully indoors. Like
yeah,
you were
it's a cave. It's a whole cavern.
Yeah, you were getting chased around by these boulders that were rolling around in there. It was a completely different vibe. In Breath of the Wild, they made it fully outdoors. Like you're in the mountain range. There's bridges connecting all of the different buildings. So yeah, I thought that was interesting how they completely can kind of change the dynamic of some of these places.
Yeah,
over time.
They kind of did the same with Zora's Domain, because Zora's Domain in Breath of the Wild is outdoors as well, even though it was in a cave in Ocarina of Time. And that might just be back when they made Ocarina of Time, they had technical limitations, obviously, because it was on the N64. But I still think it's really interesting, especially like how the fairy fountains are now instead of caves. I guess the main thing is they just took a bunch of locations in caves and just moved them outside.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I thought it was cool, and I like being able to
revolutionary
go to, like, all the villages and hear remake the orchestrated remixes of their tunes, and just how all the creatures look different. the Gorons look the same. The Zoras all look a lot different than Ocarina of Time for sure.
What was your Parker and Andrew? What were your guys' favorite like boss fights?
So honestly, my favorite one, even though it was the hardest one in the game, so this is literally the hardest boss battle in the game. Not even the Ganon fight. Okay. This was the Desert Divine Beast, where you fight the Electric Man, or whatever. I forgot what it was called. That one gave me. I had to do it. I had to literally stop playing the game, for like a month because I needed a break from this. It took me like 50 to 100 attempts to beat this freaking boss, dude. Yeah, dude, I was having such a tough time with it. But that's the only boss I really had struggles with in the game. Like the Ganon fight, for example, that took me one try. I didn't die once.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, that desert one just gave me so much hell.
Yeah, I think the desert one's my favorite just because of how satisfying it was to be done with it, really.
Yeah, dude, it just took me so long.
Yeah. What about you, John? Your favorites?
So I really liked like Goron City and stuff. But my favorite area was Zora's Domain. I thought Zora's Domain was just a wonder to look at, and this was the first area I went to as well. So I think it's a lot of people's first stop.
Yeah,
was that your
it was
guys'
mine.
first stop? I know it was.
Which one is Zora's Domain?
It's
the water one,
That's
right?
awesome.
Yeah. My order was Zora's
Mifa.
Domain, then the desert, and then the sky, town, village, or whatever, and then the volcano town.
So I did the Zora first, then I did the air one, and then I did Goron, and then the last one I did was the desert. So it's very cool how you can kind of interchange those.
I thought Zora's Domain was the coolest one. It was my favorite area. But I think that, some of my favorite moments from the game specifically were doing the shrines, the puzzles through them, because there's so many different ways that you could go about it. Depending on if you want to get like, say there's a chest in the upper left-hand corner, you might have to take a different route to get to that. Or you can skip that and take the easy route and just get the power up from the shrine. Just decisions like that you can make to completely change the experience of the game for yourself. And like I said, I mean, everyone's experience with this game is like a snowflake. No two are the same. Like, absolutely. Even speedrunners that take the exact same path, I'm sure that they have, somewhat different experiences even on that same path. It's an incredible game all in all. It's hard to point out specific favorite moments because so much of the game was so fun. But I think like what I enjoyed the most really was just exploring the game. And my favorite boss battle though, that was definitely Ganon. I thought just the spectacle and the visuals with fighting Ganon was insane. I mean, it really shows like how Nintendo was able to push the hardware to its absolute limits to do what you are seeing on screen. And I hope that everyone listening, if you haven't played this game, you have got to play
Stop what you're doing and play this right now.
Well, yeah.
Well, finish the podcast and then
I guess this would be a good time to talk about the Ganon fight then. Parker, I know this was your topic if you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. So you basically, before you can fight Ganon, you can actually take out half of his health by doing all of those divine beasts. So if you that's a complete choice. So when I went into the fight, I had all of the divine beasts completed. So when I went into the boss fight, half of his health was already taken out. So when I went into the boss fight, I was expecting it to be so intense, really the hardest fight I've ever had. But but when I went into it, it took me like 5 minutes to figure out what Ganon was doing, and then when I figured out what he was doing, I could just own him, and it took me like 5 minutes, dude, to like beat it. And I didn't complete the memories, so that you guys might have a different ending than me, but I after the Ganon fight, I was a little underwhelmed actually, because I felt like, hey, that should have been a little more intense. I felt like I shouldn't have figured it out that fast.
Yeah, I do have.
Well, there were
I can
two
pull off
endings,
Parker's quick because
technically.
it'll tie into mine very well. So I agree. I think the boss battle was pretty easy since half the health gets taken away. But actually, and I kind of wish you could do this without doing the speed running. But if you speed run the game, like I was talking about earlier, the final Ganon fight, you actually fight all of the different variations of the Fire Blight. You fight them all in a row, and then you fight Ganon at full health. So I think that would be
Wow.
it would be a lot harder, obviously, but I think if you could do that just with a normal playthrough, I think that would be amazing to do actually, because I feel like it would make it feel more satisfying and less underwhelming as a final boss fight if you have to fight all of those. Like we were talking about, me and Parker's favorite was the Thunder Blight one because it was so satisfying to finish. Because you just kept dying. But just imagine doing Wind Blight, Fire Blight, all of them in a row, and at the end, I think that would be pretty interesting. I kind of wish they had an option that you could go through like on the Ocarina of Time 3D remake, you can do a boss rush mode where you just fight all the bosses in a row. And if they did that on Breath of the Wild, like you have to do if you speedrun the game, I think that would be a really cool option. But I kind of wish that would have been in the DLC they put in.
Yeah, so just kind of going off of going off of my thoughts on the boss fight. I was kind of underwhelmed. I'm not gonna lie. I think taking away half of Ganon's health makes the fight a lot more easier, and especially what I did was I did everything. I did every single thing before I fought Ganon. I wanted Ganon to be the tying the bow situation with this game. Like that was gonna be the last thing I'm gonna do with this game. And so I did the DLC too. I did the DLC right before before the final fight, and the DLC boss is definitely harder than Ganon. So going from that fight to Ganon was a joke. It was a pretty that's one of my issues with the game, which we'll talk about later. But I thought that fight was super easy, and honestly, kind of a letdown. If I'm going to be kind of honest.
I feel like they made Ganon too predictable, and you could predict what he's going to do based off the order of the movesets that he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he literally repeats his, attacks. So you know exactly, if you can catch a pattern off of Ganon, you can beat him pretty quick.
Yeah. And then, so Parker, what was the ending for you, since you didn't get all the memories?
So basically, after the Ganon fight, I went on a horse, and then you had to shoot at this huge kind of towering beast. I don't remember what it was called.
It's Ganon.
That was Ganon.
But yeah, after that, I was pretty much done. They just had a quick cutscene with Zelda and Link talking there, and then it just went to credits.
Yeah,
I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, so the difference is if you get all 3 or all 13 memories. I'm just reading. I just pulled this up on the Wikipedia so I can find something real quick. It says you unlock a secret ending in which Zelda realizes that Hyrule must be rebuilt and that she and Link must begin the process themselves. As Link and Zelda survey Hyrule and embark to rebuild their world, the princess confides that she may no longer possess any supernatural power, yet she still has happily come to terms with it. So they just want to rebuild Hyrule, and that's kind of where the game ends. They decide okay, we're going to try to rebuild Hyrule. Zelda doesn't have any supernatural power anymore, I guess, and that's the note we end the game on. don't think there's that much to add to the ending of the game personally, because I wasn't that invested with the story. But I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Right. I don't think the story was like really what makes this game a masterpiece. I think the story was just an added bonus, to be honest. I mean, it would have been nice for there to be a little bit more with it, a little more to it. But to be honest, I think that there's always been a formula with the Legend of Zelda stories, and this one just followed a very simple version of it. What did you think, Andrew and Parker? I know you guys really like Ocarina of Time and like Majora's Mask because they have like more in-depth stories. What do you
Ocarina
guys
of
think about it?
Time. So I'm not even finished with that yet. I'm like on the Shadow Temple, so I'm very close to finishing Ocarina of Time. But the way I feel, I like Ocarina of Time more than Breath of the Wild, believe it or not. The reason why that is because of the environment. In Ocarina of Time, it just makes me happy every time I play that game. Like the music, the setting.
Like a
That game
nostalgia
just
thing.
gives you, I think, a much better mood while you're playing it because every area is just so recognizable, so iconic, that it just brings back it just makes you happy while you're playing it. Every setting just feels so real. But I do feel like the story in that is very simple too. It's just every Zelda game has a very simple, very easy to follow story. You don't really have to go much into depth with it. Just focus on the game and have fun.
Yeah, I would. Yeah,
Like Majora's Mask,
would
I know
actually
is a lot
say,
darker
like,
and more in depth.
For as good of a game as Breath of the Wild was, I do think, like Parker said, the story is very simple, which is true with Ocarina of Time too. But I think I'm the only one here that's played Majora's Mask. But that story is very dark and convoluted. It's a little harder to follow, but I think that's what also makes it great because it's got Ocarina of Time's visuals, mechanics, all that charm, but it's got like a better story. I guess I'll get my rating later.
Yeah. Did who all played the DLC for this game?
I did.
So everyone.
I did.
I did not.
Okay.
Parker
So I thought we were just, I think, kind of going back to this point. I thought the DLC. This is my quick thoughts on the DLC. I thought it was annoying how it was pretty much you couldn't do it until you did everything else in the game because you pretty much have to redo the boss fights, and it felt like there's a lot of reused content. I wasn't a big fan of the DLC.
Me neither.
But I did really, 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 really like the final boss fight of the DLC, and I did like the reward of the DLC. But it was annoying getting that motorcycle, and then now the only thing I can do is fight the final boss, which was kind of underwhelming. But I thought the boss of the DLC was really, really good and better than Ganon.
Yeah, I thought the boss of the DLC was really good. I didn't personally think it was Ganon. Like I said, that was my favorite boss battle. But I thought the DLC, the most fun part of the DLC for me was actually like the trials where if you got through, a certain number of trials, you'd get a reward at the end, I believe. I never got through it because it was super difficult. I don't know how far you guys got. I think I got to like the 10th tier or something. But no, I thought it was a good DLC, but pretty underwhelming considering, we were kind of hoping for maybe an added area or maybe some addition to the story, which it did a little bit. But I agree for what the game was, I think the DLC was super underwhelming.
What about you, Andrew?
I did. So I got both of the DLC packs. I thought there were two names for them.
The Master Sword Trials, I think, right?
Yeah, the Master Sword Trials was the first one, I think.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I don't care about that first one. I think I just did it because I wanted the Master Bike.
No. You get the bike from the story DLC.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then the story DLC was what I liked more. I still wasn't a huge fan of it, but I mean, I it's whatever, I guess. It was good for what it's worth, but if somebody started playing Breath of the Wild like today, I would say I wouldn't even bother.
Yeah. Well, kind
I
of
wouldn't
like
even bother either.
I guess let's talk about the issues first, and then we'll talk about the influences. Issues with this game, I think, are worth talking about. That I think this game is a masterpiece, and I'll kind of go into the score a little bit after that later. But I don't, where do I even start with this? I think there are issues with this game, even though I think this game is a masterpiece. I think that the combat is a little bare bones. And
Agreed.
I think it could have a little more depth to it. When I'm kind of thinking about like Dark Souls or something like that, that level of depth. But also, I think some of the performance issues are serious. Like this game can have really bad performance sometimes, and I also think that this game at times, like the story. This was one of my bigger holdups. Was I thought the side content was kind of ass, and it was like super vague and obtuse. They would just give you the side quest and then just kind of throw you out and be like, "Okay, go do this." And a lot of times you would have no idea where something is or where to go without probably looking it up. And I think the story, it follows the Zelda formula. And it's a very basic version of that, like we said. But I think, the thing is, the Ocarina of Time came out like 25 years ago. Majora's Mask came out 20 plus years ago. So I think it's worth maybe exploring newer stories or going having a more in-depth or interesting story, because imagine if another series just kept doing the same story over and over again. There has to be some sort of progression, I feel like. I understand this isn't like a super story driven game, so it's not something that I'm really going to knock it for at the end of the day. It's just a personal issue I have with the game. But the creator of the series said that Breath of the Wild 2 is heavily inspired by Red Dead Redemption 2, which makes me very curious where that's going to go, because Red Dead is a very story-focused game. But yeah, that's my issues with the game. What about you, Parker, if you have any issues?
So my main issues with the game mainly consist on just smoothness and performance. Like, there were a lot of times where the frame rate would just drop to unplayable levels, where I would have to pause the game for like a minute or two just to make it smooth. I also didn't necessarily like kind of the pointless side quests. I felt like every time I did a side quest, I kind of just wasted time because it really didn't do anything for the final plot.
I agree.
But yeah, other than that, the game's fantastic. It's hard to knock it.
What about you?
Yeah, I actually.
I guess my
go
issues
ahead,
with
Andrew.
the game, like you guys said that, or like Arsenal was saying, the story is kind of weaker. And to Parker's point, you go to Korok Forest, and I mean, you're watching a PowerPoint presentation. Basically, it's truly one of the worst experiences ever. That specific area. The other areas are pretty well. I feel like they're made pretty well and optimized well for the Switch. It's just that one, for some reason, I don't know if it's just too much stuff going on or what. And then I guess I don't have a whole lot of issues. I guess mainly I'm just kind of my main issue is the DLC. The DLC sucked. Other than that, yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to find major flaws with the base game itself.
Yeah, I mean, there was like a side quest where do you remember I was talking about this earlier, where if you collected enough
in the
materials,
village,
you could build a house.
It was so fun.
I wish there was more of that.
Yeah, and that was
right.
That was the thing. That was an
And that's
exception to the
issues
rule.
with the
Sadly,
game.
Did you, John?
Exactly.
Did you do the
Exactly.
or Parker? Really? Did you guys do the Terrytown one where it's basically that house mission, but you build an entire town instead?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude. And there's a little like
it's
there's like a
and just
nice
like
little
little stuff
cutscene
like
with it
that.
too at the end.
It makes the game what it is.
Yeah, I played
Well,
that. I played that after that mission after I beat Ganon, and it
yeah.
was.
Well,
It
did you
felt
guys
like
ever
a
do that
nice
side
little
quest in
ending
that
to the
village
game.
where like you have to like catch a thief who's like stealing stuff from people's houses, and you like, yeah,
I did do that.
yeah,
one.
like, and then you
I
have to
did that
follow him
one
leaving
too.
the village or something. But yeah, like those two side quests, fantastic. I just wish there's
Yeah.
more like those, which I hope with Breath of the Wild too. You know, like I'm very
Exactly.
curious to see like what Anuma like means by saying that this game, the second one is heavily inspired by Red Dead 2, because both of those games are like on opposite sides of the spectrum in my head, like in terms of like how they approach things. But I think they're both masterpieces, you know. So I'm very curious to see where that goes. And then I guess we could talk about our score then. Oh wait, no, John, did you even talk about your issues? I'm sorry.
Yeah. That was my only issue, really, was just not having more of those kind of, fulfilling side quests. I mean, they could have done that with the DLC, and I would have been a lot more happy with the DLC.
Yeah, let's kind of put our scores on it. I just want to make it this, I just want to say that for me, this game is a 10 out of 10. But I just want to say that does not mean that I think this game is perfect. In my head, a 10 out of 10 is something that is a masterpiece, something that moves the genre forward, something that is really pushing the medium forward, something that it's the gold standard essentially. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's going to be a shining example moving forward. And I think this game is in this pantheon of games for this current generation, or this last generation now, where I would probably put it up there with Red Dead Redemption 2, Witcher 3, Last of Us Part 2, and probably probably even like God of War or something, like those like 4 or 5 games. That's the best that you can get from this generation in terms of experiences, and I think Breath of the Wild is up there with those, and I think it's going to be an extremely impactful game moving forward. There's already been some games that have had impact, like that have been straight up copies of it, like Immortals, Phoenix Rising, and Genshin Impact, but I think this game is going to be seminal and remembered, and it's going to be a very important piece of the medium moving forward, and I think it's a 10 out of 10.
I've got the same definition for a 10 out of 10 in my mind as Ursel, and I agree. This game is a masterpiece. I would easily give it a 10 out of 10. I mean, it's my favorite game I've ever played. Like I said, it got me back into gaming. It's for all the reasons we mentioned before. It's so intuitive. It really is generation defining. And I think that, kind of like what Ursel said, if this game didn't come out, Immortals, Phoenix Rising, and Genshin Impact, they would not exist. I guarantee it. And it's had such a major impact on, the entire industry. Like, this is the gold standard for open world games now. And I don't think that anything that's come out recently, other than blatant copies of it, have even come close to what it has done. So easily a 10 out of 10 for me.
And wait, one more thing. I just want to say, like, when I wouldn't have even given it a 10 out of 10 rating until like probably the past like year or so. Like probably the first few years, in my opinion, on this game, it was probably like around a 9.5. But in my head, like getting it to a 10 out of 10, like you really understand the impact of this game now. Like, so, but go ahead, Parker.
I'm going to give this game a 9.5 out of 10. I feel like there's some things, the games, there's a lot of things they could do to make it even better. Like there's concepts they could take and drastically improve them even for a second game, and it would be much better. So I feel like there's still some room for work, but this game is an absolute masterpiece. The experience you get out of it is bar none. You just have the best time playing it. It's just so rewarding on another level that I haven't played a game as rewarding as Breath of the Wild. Not even close. So
I agree.
I will stick with my 9.5 rating. How about you, Andrew?
So this rating one's a little tricky for me. So initially, I give it I gave it a straight 10 out of 10. I thought it was, extremely good. I thought, it was super fun. I put a ton of time into it. I didn't want to put it down when I started playing. But then, kind of just moving through, I did end up playing Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask both all the way through. And I think my rating now would probably be at Parker's, probably a 9.5. I just think like playing through those two games and seeing how like strong and impactful and those stories are, and just how satisfying, like finishing like the Water Temple, for example, on Ocarina of Time that was a level of satisfaction I don't think I could emulate in Breath of the Wild if I went back in time and played it for the first time. I think a lot of the older games kind of I hope Breath of the Wild 2 kind of mixes those two, has like a strong story and better more mechanics and gameplay and stuff. But overall, I guess to my next point, I think this game will have a very large impact on the series as a whole going forward. I feel like Zelda itself is a game series that I don't know, everybody likes it. I don't know if it, overrated is the right word, but I think the frequency that the games come out in the series kind of makes just, when a new one comes out, everybody's super hyped, and there might be a little bit of that hype put into the rating, which could have been what, changed my rating eventually after I sat down and thought about it. Not to say it's a bad franchise, it's probably my number 2 favorite franchise. But it's just something that I guess to think about, because this game, compared to the older ones, this game blew the sales numbers out of any of them, like completely out of the water. Like this game has sold, I think it's 22 million copies, and the next closest Zelda game is 8. So obviously, this will have a big impact in the future, I think, and I think it'll, drive them to kind of push the series forward to keep that momentum going. Because, Zelda went from not necessarily like a niche game franchise, but one that it appeals to more hardcore fans. And I think with these sales numbers, with 2, they'll probably want to keep it going. So I think it'll impact the series by trying to keep it, kind of like very welcoming to casual people and new players, and maybe like the older games where each, it continue the tradition of having each game have like its own story. You don't really have to play the other games in the series first to actually understand it. Because I'd never played a Zelda game before. I knew what was going on the entire game. Just self-contained storylines. I think is really cool, and I hope it really pushes the next game to build on that and just make it a wide appeal type franchise. I guess for the first time.
I guess that's what we can kind of go into with our final kind of idea or topic is what do we want for the second game? What do we have any hopes for the second game? I'll just go ahead and start this off. I think that for the second game, I would love, and this is my biggest fear because I have a feeling they're not going to do this, but I would love for them to do a different map. I think that's a standard for any sequel. You always have a different map for an open world game. I want the side quests to be more creative and more involved. I like I said, I want more of the side quests, like the home building or the village building, and catching the thief. And I want them to really go bold with the story, do something interesting. I know they've done it in the past with stuff like Majora's Mask, and I know they can do something more than just tell a very this game had a very simple story, and I think they could do something more in depth. I'd love to see more like traversal options, maybe I don't know, maybe like let us do stuff that makes climbing faster. Maybe we can like do huge jumps with something, or maybe even fly for a little bit. I don't know. And I know gliding's in this game, but maybe make it more advanced. Just give us more options. Give us more tools in our toy box to do whatever we can. What about John? Do you want to share?
Yeah, Arsenal, all of those things are really good. And I think that if Breath of the Wild 2, or whatever it may be called, can have, a more in-depth story, maybe something a little darker. Better side quests, more fulfilling side quests that are more satisfying to play through and not repetitive. And just giving us more tools so that we can create, those stories for ourselves throughout the game. I think that if it's too story driven, it might feel a little more rigid. Like maybe it does feel more linear if it's more story driven. So I hope that they find that happy medium where you're still the creator of your own story in the game. I think that's super important. And also, I think if they can just smooth out some of the performance issues, and they've had plenty of time to do it. Since the last game came out, it's been 4 years now, obviously, why we're talking about it. But if they can smooth out some of those performance issues, find a good balance between a good story and not having it feel too linear, and some more fulfilling side quests, I think it'll be the best game of the generation and the decade, potentially.
I'm going to pass it off to Parker.
Yeah, so what I'm hoping for
Yeah,
on the
Parker,
next game, to be honest, I kind of want this Breath of the Wild 2 to come out on new hardware, like for the next gen. Just because, wouldn't it be amazing to play through Breath of the Wild in 4K? Wouldn't that be something special?
Oh man!
But other than that
would be something
honestly,
special.
I just like better side quests. Maybe some downloadable content where you can get new clothes, vehicles, weapons, just so you can customize a little more. But other than that, I don't want them to change too much. I don't want them to kind of mess with a good thing. I want them to just kind of keep to Zelda's path line, this Zelda storyline, but just kind of evolve it and make it more enjoyable for the person playing it, allow them to make their own story. But Andrew, what did you have to say?
I guess I kind of alluded to it. I hope they have like a more in-depth story in the second one, and I feel like just watching the trailer, it'll have more of like a Majora's Mask type transition. Just kind of like I feel like games that kind of dabble in heavier emotional elements and a deeper story. I think those are the games that you really remember a lot. So I hope they have a transition kind of like that, and I think they can fix some of the performance things, and I think kind of not necessarily making the open world more populated, but just maybe having more NPCs just randomly walking around, or just stuff like that makes it feel more makes the environment feel more welcoming and all inclusive. So that would be my ones for number 2. But I guess hopefully by the end of the year we see a little something for it.
Yeah, hopefully soon. Well, that's,
I agree.
Putting all of our scores together, we're sitting at a 9.8 that we're going to go ahead and give this game. And that is all we have for this week, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed everything we talked about. And we'll go ahead and catch you guys next week for episode 3. Take care.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We're uploading all of our podcasts to YouTube.
Subscribe and rate on Apple Pods.
Yeah, give us 5 stars. Try to leave a good review. Share it with friends or family. Do whatever you can if you enjoy it. And give us, follow us on our socials. And yeah, I think that's what I'm going to end off on. We'll see you guys next week. Adios.
Peace.
See you guys.
We'll see you guys next week.